Breaking news! The Tennessee Titans have made their final decision. The 53-man roster is officially set, and there are some moves that no one saw coming. Stay locked in because what I'm about to share could change the way you look at this Titans roster heading into the season. But before we dive into the latest updates, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss breaking Titans news, roster moves, and injury updates. Let's move straight into it. The deadline has passed, and the Tennessee Titans 53-man roster is officially here. Some familiar faces are gone, a few unexpected names survive the cuts, and one surprising signing could shake things up even further. Reports came out just moments ago that former Panthers defensive tackle Shy Tuttle intends to sign with the Titans. But hold on, Tennessee already has 53 players on the roster, which means someone is about to lose their spot. The question is, who will it be? Now let's break down the first wave of cuts that went down earlier this week. These included Joshua Bleo, Julius Wood, Matt Landers, TJ Smith, Joe Gaziano, and Arlington Hambright. No big surprises there, these were moves most people expected. But then came the release of return specialist Jaquan Jackson and wideout TJ Sheffield, whose costly punt fumble sealed his fate. The quarterback room also took a hit. Trevor Siemian, the third-string QB, didn't survive roster cuts. And for center Sam Mustaper, the writing was on the wall once Lloyd Cushenberry was activated from the PUP list. As the roster cuts continued, some familiar names didn't make it through. Running backs Jordan Mims and Jermar Jefferson were both let go, along with tight end Drake Dabney and defensive tackle Cam Horsley. Another tough one was wide receiver Xavier Restrepo, who many thought had a chance to stick around. But the biggest shocker of the entire group? James Proche. He'd been making noise throughout training camp and looked poised to lock down a return role. His release left a lot of people scratching their heads. Other names included Josh Weil, who lost ground after the emergence of Gunnar Helm, defensive lineman Carlos Watkins, edge rusher Ollie Gay, linebacker Brian Asamoah, and safety Kendall Brooks, who many believed was a near lock for the roster. Instead, he's now on the outside looking in. On the injury front, a few moves helped shape the roster picture. Quarterback Will Levis and linebacker Anthony Orji are both headed to season-ending IR. Rookie running back Tyjae Spears, however, avoided disaster. After getting rolled up on in the preseason, he's dealing with a high ankle sprain, but the Titans expect him back by week 5 or 6. His short-term IR designation essentially saved roster spots for both Kerry Mullings and Julius Chestnut, who now have an opportunity to prove themselves in live action. Still, the biggest storyline from this round of cuts remains Proche. His strong camp and preseason had many convinced he'd not only survive but thrive as a return specialist. The question now is whether Tennessee can sneak him onto the practice squad or if another team claims him before they get the chance. Now let's take a look at how the official Titans depth chart is shaping up after the final roster cuts. At quarterback, the Titans are rolling with just 2 names, Cam Ward as the starter and Brandon Allen as the backup. Allen showed enough in preseason to lock down that number 2 spot, but there's still a real chance Tennessee brings in another arm. With quarterbacks like Tommy DeVito and Hendon Hooker now available, don't be surprised if the Titans add a third option for depth and insurance. The running back room features some important notes. Tyjae Spears has been placed on short-term IR, meaning he won't be active for the first month of the season. In his absence, Kerry Mullings and Julius Chestnut step in behind lead back Tony Pollard. Both Mullings and Chestnut will also contribute on special teams, giving the Titans flexibility while they wait for Spears to recover. Moving to the wide receivers, and this group has some intrigue. Calvin Ridley headlines the unit, joined by veteran Tyler Lockett. The big development, though, is Ulmanor Leggett climbing the chart and surpassing Van Jefferson as the number 3 receiver. The rookie speedster Jameer Dyke also earned his spot, while Bryce Oliver fought his way onto the roster with an impressive preseason. Oliver's effort and consistency stood out. It wouldn't be a surprise to see him earn meaningful snaps as the season goes on. This depth chart is beginning to show the identity of the Titans heading into Week 1 against the Denver Broncos, a team built on balance with a mix of proven veterans and hungry young playmakers looking to make their mark. With Tyjae Spears sidelined for the first month of the season, the Titans will lean heavily on Tony Pollard to carry the load in the backfield. This is his chance to prove he can be more than just a complimentary piece. The expectation is that he'll push toward another 1,000-yard season as the featured back. Now let's shift to the tight ends, where 3 players officially made the cut. Josh Wall didn't survive roster trimming, but David Martin Robinson stepped up in a big way. His ability to block and contribute on special teams gave him the edge the Titans needed. Behind him, Gunnar Helm earned the number 2 role and is expected to get consistent snaps in the rotation. The offensive line is also worth a close look. The starting 5 features Dan Moore Jr., Peter Skoronsky, Lloyd Cushenberry, Kevin Zeitler, and J.C. Latham, a solid unit that looks far more reliable than what we saw a year ago. The depth behind them also includes some notable surprises. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, an undrafted rookie, fought his way onto the roster and absolutely earned his spot. Versatile veterans like Blake Hans and Corey Levin provide key insurance, while Jackson Slater rounds out the group. This offensive line feels deeper, tougher, and more disciplined than last season, exactly what head coach Brian Callahan and GM Rand Carthen set out to build. Protecting rookie quarterback Cam Ward is priority number 1, and this unit was constructed to give him the time and space he needs to grow into the role. That wraps up the offense. Now let's turn to the defense, where the Titans are building an identity that looks both tough and versatile. Up front, the defensive tackle rotation is anchored by Devondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. Simmons is already one of the most dominant interior linemen in the league, and if he stays healthy, this could be the season he earns All-Pro recognition. Alongside them, Timmy Horn and TK Lynch provide depth in the middle. On the edge, the Titans kept a strong group with Sebastian Joseph Day, Dre'Mont Jones, Arden Key, Jahad Ward, and Fehoko. Some see Joseph Day more as an interior defender, but Tennessee values his flexibility. Fehoko is still raw. This is only his second year transitioning to outside linebacker, but the staff clearly sees his potential. At linebacker, there weren't many surprises. Cedric Gray, James Williams, and Cody Barton will rotate heavily, especially with Anthony Orji lost for the year due to injury. Between Gray and Williams, expect a back-and-forth battle for that second starting spot throughout the season. Gray's preseason performance in particular turned a lot of heads, and he could be on the field with the starters in Week 1. The cornerback group might be the most interesting unit. Gabe Jeudy-Lally, L'Jarius Sneed, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., Roger McCreary, and Marcus Harris all made the cut. The biggest storyline here is Sneed. Fresh off the PUP list, he's trending toward being ready for Week 1 against Denver. Huge news for this defense. His presence completely changes the secondary. At safety, there was one final surprise. Mike Brown edged out Kendall Brooks for the last roster spot, a move that wasn't widely expected. Brown's ability to make plays, highlighted by his pick 6 in preseason, earned him the nod. Altogether, this defense has the pieces to be aggressive, fast, and physical. The front is loaded with star power, the linebackers are young but improving, and the secondary hinges on Sneed's health, which could be the difference between a solid defense and a top-tier unit. The safety group is rounded out with some familiar names and a few new ones. Kevin Winston Jr. continues to develop, while the team added veteran Quandre Diggs just a couple of weeks ago, a signing that carries a little extra buzz since Diggs happens to be quarterback Cam Ward's cousin. That family connection doesn't hurt, but the real anchors of the secondary remain Xavier Woods and Amani Hooker, who will open the season as the starting safeties. On special teams, the Titans stick with Johnny Hecker as punter and Joey Sly as kicker. Sly's recent double doink raised some concerns, and there are fans who still wish the team had held on to Nick Folk, but for now the job belongs to Sly. Julius Chestnut is set to handle kick returns, while rookie burner Jameer Dyke takes over punt return duties. And of course, Morgan Cox remains the steady hand at long snapper. One final update came down as this roster was being finalized. The Titans hold the top waiver claim heading into Wednesday. That means they'll have first choice of any player cut across the league, a huge advantage for a team still patching holes and looking to add depth. Expect Tennessee to be active, and don't be surprised if multiple new faces join the roster in the coming days. Looking at the roster as it stands, this team is certainly improved from last year. A young franchise quarterback, a more dynamic group of receivers, and a defense built around stars like Jeffrey Simmons give them a real foundation. The offensive line remains a question, and this may not be a playoff team just yet, but the Titans finally look like they're heading in the right direction. With the waiver claim advantage, there's still one more chance to get stronger before Week 1 kicks off.